Here is how to hire employees for your business and get it right the majority of the time and to stop getting burned by bad hires. My name's Kyle Mao. I'm the founder of Hire UA, and we have placed over 1,000 candidates into various businesses. And there's a few things that will allow you to hire internally for your company that greatly increase the likelihood of success. So the first tool is the EOS People Analyzer. This requires you to have the core values of your business down pat. I promise you, if you take the 3 best people in your company, you can name 3 to 5 things that you really like about each one of those individuals. And that's just your starting point. So you take your initial group of people and you write down their 3 to 5 qualities and you just circle the ones that you see more than once. So, attention to detail, employee A, B, C, D, E, all have it. That's a core value. Obviously, that if that's something that helps your company, is important to you as the founder, CEO, business owner, then guess what? That's maybe one of your core values. So the goal is to pick 3 to 5 things from 3 to 5 of your best employees and just write them down. And then it's the EOS People Analyzer. And we now use this combined with a DISC profile. And we basically found that there were certain people that always had the qualities that we wanted. And under certain positions and certain DISC assessments, the likeliness was significantly better that they were going to succeed in the long term. EOS People Analyzer basically means that you are rating candidates or people in your business. Basically, you give them a plus, you give them a plus minus, or you give them a minus. So a plus is that they embody that core value pretty much all of the time. So in our example, attention to details, we're just saying that's like your main core value of your business, let's say. If somebody is always or most of the time having really good attention to details, then they would get a plus. If they embody that value and they have attention to details some of the time, they'd get a plus minus. And then if they rarely or do not embody that value, they get a minus. And then the goal is that if you have, let's say, 5 core values at your company, that you want to have people that are mostly pluses. And so then you start thinking like, what's the minimum I'm going to accept on this? And generally I would say like for 5 core values, you shouldn't have anything less than 4. Basically you get 1 point for a plus, you get half a point for plus minus, you get 0 points for a minus. So if someone right off the bat, you feel like from an interview does not embody your core values, they can at most score a 3, which means that you probably shouldn't hire this person. And you might be asking how can I possibly tell from an interview? And the solution is to find questions that bring this out of them. You might say, what is the most complex legal situation that you've handled and how did you handle it? And then you're looking for them to tell stories about their attention to details, and then you pick it apart and you grill them. They say, oh, I needed to get my boss a visa to move to this country or travel here, whatever. A position like that, someone's probably made a mistake at some point or another. So you say, what's the time you missed that attention to detail? What happened? How did you solve it? And what you're looking for is not for someone to be perfect all the time, because that's impossible. But when they inevitably made a screw up and missed a detail, did they fix it? Did they come up with a solution, or did they leave their, boss and CEO, stuck on the side of the runway, whatever it might be? So that is how you run through it. And then the second part of this entire system is to use GWC. Gets it, wants it, and do they have the capacity to do it? So this is very simple. Number 1, do they instinctively understand what this job is? Do they get it? And this is kind of like an intuition gut check. Do they understand what this role is? Do they understand what is expected of them? Do they understand intuitively what it takes to succeed in this role? And if you haven't defined what that success is, then the problem is you. It needs to go back to you. And you need to say, what does success look like in this role? Number 2, do they want it? Do they actually want the job? Or if you're promoting someone internally, you should also look at this. And do they want this promotion? Do they want this job? For example, when hiring remote employees, a lot of times you say why do you want this job? And they say, because it's a remote job. Or they'll say something like, because I don't like my current company. That's not wanting the job at your company. You want someone who actually really wants to work for your company, not just wants a job. Candidates, if you're watching this, the worst answer you can give. Why do you want this job? Because I need a job. Well, duh. A good example of this would be that recently I'm hiring a new sales rep at Hire UA, and a rep reached out to me and has done volunteer work in Ukraine. So that is at his core being, it resonates with him of what we do. So I want this job because I've been to Ukraine, I've spent time there, I've volunteered there, I really believe in helping people. That's a real reason to want the job. And then of course, if the cherry on top is that it's remote, it's flexible, then great. But you don't just want someone to just want the job. You want them to want it for a reason beyond needing a job to make money. And then the last thing is just the capacity. Do they have the capacity to do this job? And there's two parts of this. It's logistical. Like, so if you're thinking about having someone promoted, do they have the capacity? Do they have the hours to do it? Like, do they still need to do their previous function in the company? You need to say like, is there actually enough hours in the week for them to do this job? That's just the logistical part of it. And then number two is up here. Do they actually have the mental capability, the tools to actually do this job? Some people are really good doers. You give them a task, they do it, it goes very well, it's very smooth, but that does not mean that they are good managers. It does not mean that they are good at fixing things or being accountable and providing solutions. Like, there's a huge difference between an architect who designs and creates everything from scratch and the person who then constructs the building. Huge difference. Like, a construction worker does not have the capability to design that. And it's the same thing in business. Like, if you need a system built for your business or a process or a procedure, the person who can do that is not necessarily the one who can then document it and teach others. There's a huge gap between those two, because you'll look at this and you'll say, like, oh, I like this person, they seem nice. Oh, but I didn't really think they could do it. I just intuitively, I kind of felt it was off. And then you look at the score and you're like, well, yeah, they scored a 4, so of course they can't do it. And so basically you have your score of 4 to 5, and you have your score of 3. And that's your first point. So then the second part requires you to already have like a sample size, and that is basically to do a DISC assessment. So you do it yourself, your team goes and does it, and you will likely find a correlation between the people who you really like and get stuff done and have those 3 to 5 core values. And you'll probably find that on a DISC assessment, they score relatively the same, like maybe not 100% the same, but a lot of the personality profiles will have an overlap. So now you've got your core values that tell you what matters at your company and who succeeds at your company. And now you have a general personality profile that shows you who those people are and what they are like. So what you want to start then looking at is who has worked out at your company and who hasn't, because I promise you your best performers are going to be similar as far as core values, and they're going to be similar as far as the DISC personality profiles. And then the people who didn't work out or who are not working out are also probably going to have relatively similar profiles and score relatively the same on the values. Now, it's not 100%, like, to be really, really clear, and you shouldn't like make all your decisions just off of a DISC profile, but this is now 2 data points and it really, really helps. And then you can go one step further and you can do like a basic cognitive test. You have to pick the same one, and it's basically just logic and reasoning. Are they intelligent or are they not? It could be an IQ test, whatever it is. And you chain these 3 things together and you have to architect this. You have to think about it. And you say like, okay, these people have these core values, these people have this DISC profile, and they have this intelligence profile. And what you want to do is really avoid dangerous situations where you have like dominant personalities in key roles, but they're stupid. And not to be blunt, but that's like the reality is. So if you get someone who's like, let's say sales, charming, can sell, like good talker, smooth, people like them, charismatic, but they're scoring low on intelligence, and then they have a dominant personality, so they are likely to, in most salespeople will, to a certain extent if they're good at sales. So then you basically have someone who has ideas and is pushy about them, but doesn't have the mental capacity to think through them all, and maybe doesn't embody your core values. So then that starts to be like, a warning sign. Sometimes those tests are very difficult if you're not like a native English speaker. Like my recent assistant who I hired, who's been an awesome hire so far, scored very, very, very poorly on the cognitive test, but she scored very, very, very well on core values and gets it once at capacity, full 8 out of 8. And on top of that, she scored like a really good DISC profile for that role, and you can kind of you can think about it intuitively. If you want, for an executive assistant, you want someone who's like steady, maybe dominant at times, or is charismatic. If you like a large company, you want them to get along with people. So you can kind of just think through it with common sense of like, what do I need this person to be? So in my case, when I hired Maria, it was like, okay, she's really steady and she's really, I think, good with people. I think that was her profile. And then I'm dominant and good with people. So that was like a good mix. To summarize, to hire the best employees and to get it right most of the time, it's not exact science. You want to use the EOS People Analyzer and GWC. You then want to combine that with a DISC assessment as well as a general cognitive assessment. Use common sense and your own logic and reasoning to map these things out for what role, and use it both as a way to reassure that you are making the right choice as well as staying away from certain dangerous situations. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe to the channel. Lots more content about growing and scaling your business coming up soon. And if you are actively looking to hire right now or in the near future and are looking to hire someone from overseas, go to hire-ua.com and we'll be glad to help you out with your placement. See you next time.